What if the greatest peace you ever felt came at the cost of everything you once knew? What if your soul found clarity, but your family couldn't bear to watch you change? This is the powerful and emotional story of a Jewish man whose search for truth led him to Islam, not in protest, not in anger, but in peace. His journey is not just about faith. It's about courage. It's about breaking free from expectations, standing firm in your beliefs, and paying the price for inner peace when the world around you doesn't understand. In a time where religion often divides, this story unites. It speaks to anyone who has ever questioned, doubted, or dared to be different. Through silence, prayer, and strength, this man built a bridge, not just between two faiths, but between the heart and the truth it longs for. Stay with us until the end. This isn't just a speech, it's a mirror for every soul seeking purpose. The journey of faith is often not about religion itself, but about the deep and universal human longing to find meaning in life. Whether someone is born in a synagogue, raised in a church, or grows up hearing the call to prayer from a mosque, the heart of every human being is asking the same question: why am I here, and what is the purpose of my life? That's what this Jewish man was searching for. Not a label, not a religion, but something deeper. Truth that gives peace, direction, and clarity in a world filled with noise. He grew up with tradition, with stories passed down through generations, with sacred texts and rich culture, but over time, he began to feel that something was missing, not out of disrespect or rebellion, but from an honest desire to understand his own soul. It wasn't that he rejected his upbringing. In fact, it was his upbringing that gave him the strength and the curiosity to search further. He read, he listened, he traveled within himself. He came across the teachings of Islam not as a political statement, not through media headlines, but through conversation, humility, and self-reflection. The peace he found was not immediate. It came slowly, like the sunrise after a long night. It was the discipline, the unity, the quiet dignity in the practices of Islam that began to shape his days and calm his restless heart. It is not a story of changing teams. It is a story of a human being finally hearing something that made sense to him in Islam. He found a way to connect directly with the Creator, without fear, without confusion. 5 times a day, he paused to remind himself of his place in the world, not above anyone, not beneath anyone, but in service, in humility. For the first time, he felt whole. And that wholeness didn't cancel out his past. He simply gave his past a new meaning. His search for meaning was not about becoming someone else. It was about becoming himself more fully. And that's something every person, no matter where they live or what they believe, can understand. When a person makes a choice that challenges their inherited identity, especially something as deeply rooted as religion, it doesn't just affect them, it shakes the very foundations of the family. In this case, the Jewish man who found peace in Islam wasn't just stepping into a new spiritual path. He was stepping away from generations of collective memory, culture, trauma, and pride. For his family, his decision wasn't just personal. It was emotional, painful and difficult to comprehend. The moment he declared his belief in Islam, his parents didn't see it as a man finding peace. They saw it as a son walking away from everything they had passed down. This emotional disconnect wasn't built on hate, it was built on fear. The fear of losing their child to a world they didn't understand, a religion they perhaps only knew through stereotypes, headlines, or distant tensions. Cultural identity in Jewish families often goes beyond belief. It's tied to survival, to resilience through centuries of persecution, to unity in the face of global misunderstanding. So when their son embraced a faith that has at times been portrayed as a rival in the political world, it felt like betrayal. Even if that wasn't his intention, the family wasn't ready, not because they were close-minded, but because they were deeply invested in a story, a heritage, and a collective pain that he was now interpreting differently. To them, this wasn't just about theology, it was about history, legacy, and the fear of forgetting who they are. The tension became more about identity than about faith. The son tried to explain that he wasn't turning against them. He wasn't rejecting his roots. He was simply following a calling that spoke to his heart in a way that nothing else had. But explanations don't always heal wounds, especially when hearts are wrapped in fear. The family felt left behind. They couldn't see his peace because they were clouded by the pain of perceived rejection. What he experienced as a beautiful transformation, they interpreted as abandonment. And in that space of misunderstanding, the relationship became strained. It wasn't because love was absent, it was because love was too strong, too tightly tied to expectation and tradition. Their son's journey had just begun, but for the family, it felt like something had ended. The Jewish man did not arrive at Islam through rebellion or rejection. He arrived quietly through observation, curiosity, and the deep inner need to make sense of life's chaos. In a world where religion is often politicized, misunderstood, or weaponized, what drew him to Islam wasn't its dominance in headlines, but its silence in his heart. The way it called to him, not with noise, but with peace. He discovered Islam not in confrontation, but in moments of stillness. In a simple yet profound way, Muslims wash before prayer. The way they align shoulder to shoulder, the way they bow, not to a symbol, but directly to God. These acts weren't just rituals, they were language, a way to express humility, discipline, and connection. It made sense to him, not as an outsider studying a faith, but as a soul-finding rhythm with the divine. He found that Islam's structure offered something he had longed for, a consistent reminder of purpose. The 5 daily prayers became his anchor. In those moments, he felt seen. Not by society, not even by his family, but by the Creator. Islam wasn't loud in his life, it was gentle. It didn't demand him to erase his past, but to refine his present. The Prophet Muhammad's teachings spoke to him not just spiritually, but practically. How to treat people with justice, how to guard the tongue, how to walk this earth with mercy and strength. These were principles he had long respected, but never saw embodied in such daily discipline. The peace he discovered wasn't emotional comfort alone, it was clarity. Islam gave him a framework to manage his soul, his ego, and his desires in a way that felt liberating. It taught him that peace is not the absence of hardship, but the presence of direction. He found a God who was not distant and abstract, but near, responsive, and merciful. He found a community that wasn't perfect, but was committed to striving. And more than anything, he found that Islam was not a faith of anger or force, but of calm intention and sincere effort. It was a faith that told him, if your heart is searching for peace, don't shout, just listen. That was the whisper he followed, and in that whisper, he finally felt whole. The journey this man took was not about turning his back on Judaism, but about moving from what he inherited to what he chose. His roots were Jewish, deep, proud, and meaningful. He knew the prayers, the history, the traditions. But as he matured and his questions grew louder, he began to feel a gap between the rituals he had memorized and the fulfillment his soul longed for. That tension didn't come from disloyalty, but from a desire to engage more fully with his spiritual life. He wasn't trying to erase who he was trying to become more of who he was meant to be. Judaism shaped his foundation. It gave him values, a sense of community, a moral compass. But something inside him kept urging him to seek further, to go beyond the limits of familiarity. When he encountered Islam, he didn't see a replacement, he saw a continuation. The prophets he grew up learning about, Abraham, Moses, David, were honored in Islam as well. The principles of justice, charity, and devotion didn't feel foreign. They felt expanded, clarified, and more deeply woven into daily life. It wasn't about choosing sides. It was about deepening his faith, strengthening his purpose. In Islam, he found a way to bring structure to his beliefs and direct access to the Creator without intermediaries. It wasn't a rejection of his past. It was a transformation. His Jewish heritage was a door, and Islam was the hallway that led him closer to peace. He carried his story with him, not with shame, but with strength. He didn't hide his background or deny it. In fact, he often said that it was his Jewish upbringing that taught him how to value faith, how to ask questions, and how to pursue truth with integrity. That's what made his acceptance of Islam so powerful. It wasn't impulsive, it was thoughtful, heartfelt, and sincere. He didn't forget where he came from. He used it to guide where he was going. His transformation was quiet but profound, not because he changed who he was, but because he aligned who he was with what he truly believed. He didn't see himself as a man who left one world for another. He saw himself as someone who had taken the next step in his spiritual evolution, guided not by rejection, but by love for what was real. Inner peace is often portrayed as something soft, gentle, and welcomed by all, but in reality, true peace sometimes comes with a cost. For this Jewish man, the moment he embraced Islam, he did so with a full heart. But the world around him didn't react with the same warmth. The price he paid wasn't material, but emotional. He felt the distance from his family grow. Conversations became careful. Gatherings became awkward. Some old friends withdrew. He found himself at times walking alone, not because he wanted isolation, but because his truth had created discomfort in others. But even in that loneliness, he stood firm, not with arrogance, but with calm certainty. He knew that the peace inside him was not fragile, it was earned. Islam brought him a deep sense of stillness, clarity, and direction. But that peace had to be protected, not from enemies, but from the weight of misunderstanding. People questioned his motives. They thought he had been misled or manipulated. Some said he would come back to his real identity. But he knew that his decision was not a reaction, it was a realization. He didn't argue or try to convince anyone. He simply lived differently. His mornings began with prayer. His days were shaped by purpose. His nights ended in gratitude. And over time, that quiet consistency spoke louder than any explanation he could offer. Yet the cost remained. He missed the laughter of his family when faith was not a dividing line. He missed the simplicity of belonging without explanation, but he never regretted his path. His peace wasn't loud, but it was firm. It kept him centered during moments of doubt. It gave him strength when he felt misunderstood. He didn't carry anger, he carried understanding. Even for those who rejected him, he knew that not everyone could see what he saw or feel what he felt. And that was okay, because peace, real peace, isn't about everyone agreeing. It's about standing where your soul feels aligned, even if it means standing alone for a while. He didn't ask for applause. He didn't need approval. The connection he had with God was enough to sustain him. And that quiet connection, built on faith and consistency, gave him something far more valuable than comfort. It gave him truth. And in that truth, he found a kind of peace that no rejection could shake. The man's journey into Islam was not about drawing a line between people. It was never about saying one path is right and all others are wrong. It was about building something personal, a bridge between his inner calling and the life he wanted to live with purpose. He never told anyone to follow him, nor did he demand his family or friends to change. Instead, his focus was on living with integrity in a way that reflected his belief without alienating those around him. He knew the world didn't need more arguments over faith. It needed more understanding. It needed people willing to walk calmly, speak kindly, and live truthfully. That's what he chose to become. Not a wall separating faiths, but a bridge reminding others that human dignity goes beyond religious labels. His conversion could have been a reason for division, but he chose to use it as a message of unity. He never spoke of his past with bitterness. He honored it. And through that, he showed that embracing one belief does not mean destroying another. He made space for both, the faith he came from and the faith he walked into. This ability to hold respect for multiple identities made him a quiet example of what the world struggles to understand, that faith isn't about sides, it's about sincerity. He believed that people don't have to agree in order to respect each other. And respect, he felt, was the real essence of any divine teaching. He would often say that Islam didn't teach him to judge, it taught him to understand. He believed that every faith has its own beauty, its own light, and its own path to God. What mattered most to him was walking that path with humility, not pride. And though his family couldn't fully support his decision, he never returned their confusion with anger. Instead, he responded with patience and love, hoping that one day the bridge he was building with his life might be strong enough for them to walk across. Not to change their faith, but to understand his. He didn't want to erase differences. He wanted to make them less frightening. His story became a quiet reminder that it's possible to stay true to yourself while honoring those who don't walk the same road. The bridge he built was not made of words, but of actions, consistent, compassionate, and sincere. This journey was never about abandoning one truth for another, but about following the call of the heart wherever it leads. The story of this Jewish man who found peace in Islam is not a tale of conflict. It's a powerful reminder that faith, when sincerely pursued, brings not division, but depth. He did not erase his past. He built upon it. He did not reject his family. He longed for their understanding. And through all the loneliness, misunderstanding, and personal struggle, he chose peace over comfort, truth over approval, and connection with God over the fear of being judged. In a world that often asks us to pick sides, his life became a bridge between cultures, beliefs, and hearts. May we all have the courage to listen to our soul's calling and the wisdom to walk our journey with grace. Thank you for watching this powerful story. May it inspire you to seek your own path with sincerity, to honor your roots without fear of growth, and to always choose peace, no matter the cost. Good luck on your own journey, and may you find the strength to walk it with truth. Thank you.